But anyway, because I had this great Thanksgiving day and had this wonderful, wonderful day with wonderful food, and only one thing happened. On Friday morning, I went out in my car and I turned the radio on. And this announcer ruined my Thanksgiving. He said, "Did you know that the average Thanksgiving meal has 4,500 calories in it?" And then, not only say that, he described everything I ate. And he even gave the did you know mashed potatoes have 450 calories in them? But if you put gravy on it, there's 600 calories. Yay is right. And I enjoyed all of it, okay? It's a good thing I'm on a diet. Anyway, we are moving into this Christmas season, and as we move into the Christmas season, we are celebrating Advent. Advent is all about setting an intention. It's all about setting an intention of how I want to show up for Christmas, how I want to show up all year round, really, not just at Christmas. It's about showing up in unconditional love. It's about showing up with joy. It's about showing up as peace. And it's about showing up as hope. Last week, Jim Carrey, we used a Jim Carrey clip. And in it he says, I don't really think hope is much. Matter of fact, I think we ought to really look at faith. And I thought about that and I said, I kind of agree with him. And here I am going to talk about hope next week. And then it dawned on me that it really is an important aspect of our beingness. That when we are in hope, we are able to, in moments of despair, in that dark night of the soul, in that time when we just feel separated and apart and so alone, it's that opportunity within us to always know that coming from our heart is this little light. And when I see that light and feel that light and sense that light within me, I know that there is another day approaching, a brighter day, a more beautiful day. And that as that light broadens, that I'm able to take hope and then turn it into the faith that I am, direct my faith. And so we can move ahead. Just a couple little illustrations of hope. A fellow went to his son's baseball game. And when he went to the baseball game, he got there about 20 minutes late. And he said to his son, "What's the score?" And his son said, "It's 18-0. He said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You must be really discouraged. You must be without hope." The little boy said, "It's no problem, Dad. We haven't gotten up to bat yet." So anyway. And here's another story of hope. There was a man who, many years ago, was pronounced to be put to death by the king. And the king had his favorite horse that he really believed in. And the man knew this. And he said to the king, "You know what? Will you put off my execution for 1 year so I can teach your horse how to fly?" And the king said, "You can't do that." He said, "Oh, yeah, I can. I can teach your horse how to fly." And he said, "Okay, fine. I'll give you a year off." And somebody said, Why did you put it off for a year? I mean, you're going to die in a year." He said, No. There's several things that could happen. Number one is the king might die before I do. The second thing is I might die this year, and that's okay too. The third thing is the horse might die. And if none of that works, maybe, just maybe, the horse will learn to fly. So we always have this eternal hope. And there's a little clip that I have, Rob, if that's ready, I'd like to share with you. Jeremiah was a prophet, a major prophet. Now, I never figured out the difference between a major prophet and a minor prophet, except that a major prophet wrote more. And Jeremiah was kind of a rascal. He was a guy who preached hell and damnation to the children of Israel. He's a guy who ran through the original streaker, if you would, ran through the streets of Jerusalem naked, okay, to get attention. And that will get you attention. And he was always telling the children of Israel, you are going to be damned. You are going to lose what you have because you are not worshiping God as you should. That's the first half of his ministry. There was a second half to it. Sure enough, as he predicted, what happened was the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar came into Jerusalem and destroyed Jerusalem pretty much, took it from a city of 250,000 to about 20,000, and took all of the artisans, took all the people who had great minds, and shipped them to Babylon. And Jeremiah, instead of being shipped there, he got out of town and he went to Egypt. Okay? And while he was in Egypt, he kind of had, I think, a change in heart, a change in mind. Because he began to see God in a different way. He didn't see a God of damnation, he saw a God of love. He didn't see a God of envy and of anger. He saw a God that gives you hope and gives you faith. And he started to write about that. And one of the scriptures that he wrote, which you just saw, in Jeremiah 29:11, it says, "For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans for your prosperity, plans for your welfare, and no plans for harming you. I am here to give you a future of hope." Certainly the Christian message, the message of all faiths, is for hope. For understanding that hope is so important to us. It is an understanding that we're not to give up even though we feel like we need to. One of the great old Puritan preachers of Cambridge was Richard Sibbes. And he wrote a book on Psalms 42:5. He was called, and this is interesting because I didn't think any Puritans were called this, but he was called the Sweet Dropper. That was his nickname, the Sweet Dropper. The reason he was called the Sweet Dropper is because his messages were positive and gave hope and gave opportunity to people, and they felt good when they left church. I never put that together with the Puritan faith, okay? But that's what he was known as. And in reading, he wrote a book said, "The Soul's Conflict with Itself." And this is why he read it, because in Psalm 42:5 it says, "Why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you disquieted within me? Have hope in God." That's what David was saying. David had a lot of times in his life that things weren't going the way he wanted them to. He brought most of it on himself, as we know. But what he did do is he understood there was always this ray of hope, this opportunity of hope. And he was kind of saying, ego, get out of the way. Get out of the way. There is hope for me. You know, each and every one of us goes through some of our stuff. We sometimes do it weekly, daily, sometimes annually. Sometimes every 10 years you have the same reoccurrence because we haven't learned yet. But you know, what we understand that no matter what position we're in, no matter our circumstances, that when we really stop, just stop, and focus on the present moment, we are able to see that little glimmer of light that emanates from the heart space. We're able to feel that light and the warmth of it. And know that when we feel that there is this hope, there is this opportunity out there, but we don't quite know what it looks like because all we see is a little glimmer of light. But that's all we need in those times. Because that light gets brighter and brighter, as I said earlier. That light becomes a way to guide us and direct us so that we are on the path, if you would. Another thing in the psalmist said, "Your word is a lantern to my feet and a light upon my path. You are my refuge and my shield. My hope is in your word." The word many times is defined as the Bible. That's not what we're talking about here. Matter of fact, when the psalmist wrote that, there wasn't a Bible. There wasn't a New Testament. There were these psalms that they said, and there were stories that they told. And what happens is the word is more like the Greek word logos. In the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was mind. In the beginning was the opportunity for each of us to behold the Christ within ourselves. And when we do that, you see, we can have nothing but hope. When I step into that Christ consciousness and get rid of the ego consciousness, I'm able to embrace the higher self. I am embracing the Christ within. I am looking at the I am and saying, I am valuable. I am of worth. I am a person with a future. I am filled with hope. And that living Christ within will then manifest itself. Also, the psalmist said, sustain me according to your promise. Let me not be disappointed in my hope. In that day and time, in that consciousness, it was God out there. Don't let me be disappointed because I have hope that you will sustain me, that you will be my refuge, that you will be my strength. In today's world, certainly for us, it is more in the aspect of God within, the Christ within. Don't let me forget who and what I am. And when I do that, know that I will not be disappointed in myself. Even if I make mistakes. Even if I go the wrong way for a while. Even if I get confused. Even if I feel rejected. I don't want to be disappointed within. And I'm not when I really focus on the truth of who I am and what I am. That I am an expression of God. An expression of love, an expression of hope, an expression of peace, an expression of wisdom. What I have learned once I was willing to release, if you would, once I was willing to stand firm in new belief systems, I learned that I would never be disappointed by what I called God. Because you see, I didn't trust that God out there. I didn't quite understand what that God out there had in store for me. I didn't know if I wanted to follow that and then be disappointed. And so what happened is that I learned that I was surrendering to the higher self, that I was surrendering to that Christ presence within me. And as I surrendered to that, I found no disappointment whatsoever. The only time there's disappointment is when I allow the ego to separate me from that belief system, from the core of my beingness. And so I suggest to you that to have hope, that you will never be disappointed if you turn within to that Christ presence within. As you become more enlightened, as you understand that the world is temporary, as you understand, and the Course in Miracles says the world is nonsense, insanity, and a lot of it is. But it only is because we cherish certain belief systems that separate us rather than bring us together. And my hope is that we will come together more and more and more. That this body here, this community here, will be that example and is that example of how to live together with hope, with faith, and with love. And as we do that, you see, we manifest it out into the community. Because you cannot keep a light from shining. Here's some of my thoughts on hope for me. That hope is moving from depression to expression. That is a choice that I make. Hope is a woman and her children fleeing from an abusive relationship to a shelter where she can start anew. That's hope. There is hope for those caught in the ravages of war, knowing that they will be free someday. That there is that little light, even in the middle of war. And you know, I'm not talking about just wars throughout the world. I'm talking about wars at home. I'm talking about wars between siblings. I'm talking about wars between co-workers. When we let go of that, we are free. Hope is that people of all color will walk together against injustice side by side. That activists and police and politicians and all of God's children will be together in that march. That there's not two marches going on, there's not two things going on as we've seen in Ferguson, but instead we're together where there's any injustice. That we can release what we think is an injustice. That we can release what we project on others and instead come together in our oneness. Gandhi proved, Martin Luther King Jr. proved that when we do that, we are stronger, we are better. And what I think we're doing is expressing the Christ light. We are stepping into that moment where we feel together, and together we make the right decisions. Together we talk. Together we work for a better world. I really believe that we're on the way, although it doesn't always look like it, to a world that works for all. My hope is that all people, no matter their sexual persuasion, will be treated with equality under the law, and we're getting there. And be treated with dignity and worth when they walk into any house of worship. And we need work there. But you guys are setting the example. I don't have to hope for that. It's happening right here. And I bless you for it, and I thank you for it. I hope, as we plan together, and remember what that little video said, hope without a plan is just an idea that fades away. I hope as we plan together that we will create the vision that Spirit has for us. You see, Spirit already knows what we're going to look like in the future. Spirit already sees who and what we are. And I affirm that we will step into divine mind, that we will step into divine ideas, and we will step into divine expression and become what Spirit sees for us, which is always, always much bigger and much larger and more exciting than anything we can dream up. And yet, it can be more scary too. Because we wonder, where are we going to get the people to do all this? Where are the money's going to come from? You know, that's not our job. Our job is to dream. Our job is to step out there. Our job is to be ready. And then the resources will come. And the people will come. God will never, ever give us an idea that is bigger than what we can do. And when the young people are in here, I think we all can relate to the fact that is our hope of glory. That is what we look at and say, we want them, and they are on the way. I mean, when I was their age, I was still talking about going to hell if you didn't do certain things, okay? I mean, I was talking about it when I was Chance's age. And to hear young people express the love and getting together and knowing people and caring about people, isn't that wonderful? They are our hope of glory. But not only are they our hope of glory, you, each of you, are our hope of glory. Thank you. And now we have welcome visitors. I think. Yes, I have to check up here to make sure I'm on the right track. We have welcome of visitors, okay? So if you're visiting here today for the first time, would you please raise your hand? Just raise your hand. We'd like to welcome you here. We have several people around raising their hands.